Attune40.com. Weakening or being strong is personal, but how does church as an institution influence individual position in this?
So, church as an institution, I think God designed to bring his people together. We aren't meant to do this alone. I think that we need community around us. We need people who are there to uplift us, to encourage us, to hold us accountable. And so I think the more that we're pulled away from that community and feel like we're doing this all alone, that also makes it more difficult, to stay in this race towards the Lord. So church, I think at its core, that's what God's heart is behind it. It's to bring his people to take you deeper into it.
Might you be knowing why people often weaken in their faith?
Well, I would say there's all kinds of different reasons for that. I think that people can be fighting really hard and just get exhausted. And so they start to pull back a little bit or feel like they need a break. And sometimes I think there's a good season, like a season for rest. But I just always say in those seasons, like make sure that we're still working through it and that we're not getting stuck there. So I think a lot of times we get stuck in a season for some reason and we don't know how to get out. And I think our spiritual practices too are huge. And the world is noisy and we're busy people. And if we start focusing on other things and prioritizing other things before God, that's also going to weaken our faith together.
Maybe we would also have to look at the lessons you've learned. Obviously, you were not born with this awareness. So how did you come to know that it's important to awaken this faith?
Well, I think I've been a Christian since I was a young girl, and I've had all kinds of various seasons in my walk of faith with God, and different times when I was confused about what it meant to follow him, how I was supposed to prioritize him, all the way up to times where I'm really looking to him for everything and having him guide my life. And I think that is for all of us a journey and an ongoing process. The Bible talks about being transformed and being sanctified. And, all of those terms, I think, are our learning process of turning to him and becoming more and more like him. And so the closer that we are in relationship with him, just like in any relationship in our life, like to have a close friend, we have to be engaged with them. We have to be in conversation with them, spend time with them. And so for me personally, I know the more that I have put him and his relationship in my life as a priority, then the closer I feel to him, the stronger I feel like that relationship is, and the more I can just feel his presence and sense him in my life.
How can someone recognize dormant faith in their own life?
So I think a lot of people are very aware of where they're at in their relationship with God. And I think if you're honest with yourself, a lot of Christians might even say and label themselves as lukewarm, meaning that, yeah, they know God is there, but they probably know that they aren't really engaged, that they aren't really putting that relationship with him as a priority, and that they are, running around in their everyday, more wrapped up in other things besides him. And so I think most people can recognize that in their lives and know that their faith can be stronger and that they can live it out or just have a better relationship with him.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us, once a person has identified themselves that they actually are walking in dormant faith, what would be your advice? What are the steps they could take in order to activate their faith?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think even just the smallest steps to try to put more of a focus on their relationship with God. So I would say, I know that it's busy. Like a lot of times people are just feel like it's just another thing and they don't know how to even set aside more time for that relationship with God. And so like, and I agree, like it's hard. And that is a struggle. So I want them to not feel alone in that, and that it does take dedication and it does take practice to learn to set our spiritual practices as priority. And so I can just share even some of the things that I know in my busy life to help that maybe someone out there can glean from and think, okay, I can do that. Like that doesn't seem that hard. That doesn't seem like too big of a step of my first step to try to awaken my faith again. It can be as easy as, finding even 5 minutes in the morning, first thing, waking up 5 minutes earlier and trying to find a quiet, cozy place in your house where you can open up the Bible and you can just start to get into the Word a little bit. But even if that is not an option for you, you don't feel like you can do that. I know I spend a lot of time in my car right now, driving my kids around different places or, dealing with different family things. And so I would say think about where you are spending a lot of your time and how you can connect with God during that time. So even in my car, I utilize a lot of listening tools while I'm driving around, and I get to benefit from that. And my kids in the car, even if they have their headphones in or, an earplugged or whatever, like I know they can still hear some of that and that they're getting fed with some of that too. So even something as simple as I think about how influential music is in our lives, and it runs in our minds often, the lyrics to songs, and we memorize it. And so when I play worship music, even in my car, instead of having random radio songs on, that can instantly set a tone for my day and help me get aligned in thinking more about God and talking to him and communicating with him and worshiping him. And if one of those songs happens to get stuck in my head, then great. And then there's also podcasts like this that are spiritually sound podcasts or books that you can listen to. And then, sometimes if I'm listening and something pops into my mind from what I was listening to that I can't really process and address in the moment, I even just make a quick note in my phone of, what I was thinking about or what came about in that time, so that in a less busy time, I can go back and readdress that and dig into that a little bit deeper and pray about it. And the Bible app is another great resource that I utilize often because they have a lot of reading plans on there. So wherever you are, you can find a plan that really speaks to your situation, and you can find a Bible reading plan that fits and meets you in that place. And that's also a really easy one that you can listen to. You can read it along with it, or there's an audible option. So while you're doing your daily walk or cooking dinner or whatever you're doing, you can listen to your Bible study for the day. So I have found that to be a really helpful tool too. And on that, you can invite other people onto the plans that you're doing. So each day you're doing reading whenever it fits into your day, and your friend can also do the same, and you can make comments about what you thought about the reading or what God spoke to you in that. And so that's also a way of engaging community, but in your own time. That you can still connect with someone else and process with someone else, but you don't have to be there doing it at the same time. And I've loved that too.
Which app do you use personally for
I
reading?
use it for reading the Bible. It's just called the Holy Bible. It's the Bible. It's one of the Bible apps. And it's just called the Holy Bible.
Yes, I would like to highlight the core message here, and then I'll ask you to give us your final message to our listeners and viewers. You've mentioned that when our faith is dormant, then our obedience is actually fading, and we are not responding to the Great Commission, which implies that we are not bearing fruit, which I found was really a strong message. What would you say to individuals today who don't care about bringing more people to Christ?
If that's where you are right now, like that's a great thing to recognize and pray about. And I would just say focus on your relationship with God. Like seek him. Yeah. And that can be your focus, and that's okay. And I believe that God will continue to grow and develop that, and that you will grow to have a burdened heart for other people to come to know him.
Thank you very much. And what would be your final message for as we close?
I mean, I guess for especially those, who feel like they're in this time of dormant faith, or just who feel distant from God, I just want them to hear clearly that their feelings are not the measure of God's presence. So Romans 8 reminds us that nothing, not life, not death, not failure, not doubt, not seasons of numbness, nothing can separate us from the love of God found in Christ. And so nothing includes whatever season you're in right now, that he is not pacing in heaven. He's not disappointed, but he's near and he delights in you. He rejoices over you, and his love is not thinned because your passion has. So with that, like sometimes distance isn't about God moving away, but it's about us losing our focus in a loud world. That's easy to do. So Hebrews also tells us to run with perseverance, fixing our eyes on Jesus. And I love that imagery because endurance doesn't come from striving harder. It comes from where we look. So again, just reminding you that if you feel far from him, don't start doing more. Just start with turning your gaze back towards him. That can be the simple, easiest start. Just start looking back towards him. And even a whisper of, Lord, I'm here, is enough to begin again. So stay anchored, don't give up, and remember that the God who saved you is the God who sustains you, and he hasn't let go.
At this point, I would like to ask you to tell us about your book, The Dormant Faith. Where can people find it?
So you can go to Amazon. It's on Amazon. Just even if you search Dormant Faith by Kari Hunnicutt, it's there. I also have a website, and I talk about lots of different content on the website with faith, fitness, and travel. But there's also a link to the book on my website. Either way, whether you go directly to Amazon or the link on my website, you can find it.
Do you like to tell us your website? Some people are listening right now on audio.
Yes, it's devotedexplorer.com.
Kari is an author. She has written a very interesting book, Dormant Faith. Would you like to tell us about this book and why you chose that title?
That's such a great question and such a good way to start off. First of all, Emmanuel, I want to thank you for having me. And I love that I am in the US and you're in Uganda, and that we can have this conversation. And I'm excited that you have created this space to focus on helping listeners restore a thriving relationship with God. And that is truly in line with my book, Dormant Faith. So when I used the phrase dormant faith and came up with that for the title of the book, I am describing a faith that still exists, but maybe isn't fully engaged. So it's not someone who has rejected God. It's someone who still believes, but maybe the relationship has grown quiet or routine or comfortable. So we might know the truth, but we're no longer actively seeking intimacy with him or expecting him to move. And so in the book, we talk a lot about when that engagement fades, obedience often fades with it. And I also talked about a survey that I sent out to Christians in my circle about the Great Commission, because it's the final commandment that Jesus made to his disciples before ascending into heaven. And in this command, he told them to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing and teaching them to obey his commands. And this is how his good news spreads and how people come to know him. And I believe that as people actively living out our faith today, we still desire to obey the Great Commission too. And in my survey, almost everyone knew the Great Commission and agreed that it was a command from God, but nearly half of them did not feel effective or obedient in living it out in today's world. And so that really struck me. And when we got deeper into it, many people said that they struggle with fear. So whether that was fear of rejection or fear of saying the wrong things. Others said their faith has just become private, like that's just what they believe and it's a private matter and that's okay. Some felt unprepared or just inconvenienced in their busy everyday lives or ashamed. And so, what I kind of came down to was that the issue wasn't necessarily knowledge, but it was hesitation of some sort. So that gap between belief and action, for whatever reason, is often where our dormant faith can live. But with that, I often say, and in my book I say, but it's that dormancy is not death. So the goal of this book is not to pressure people into doing more for God. It's to help them re-engage deeply with him. Because when we're truly connected to the Spirit, our obedience becomes an overflow from that, not an obligation. And I think for me, that's been one of my ongoing lessons, that God doesn't need our performance. He just wants our presence. And so dormant faith kind of walks through all of that in a pretty deep way. You can take it as deep or as lightly as you want, but there's a lot of content there that's really just drawing you closer to your relationship with God. And it leaves questions and prayers and worship songs at the end of each chapter to really soak in God and soak in his word.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure hosting you on this podcast. You're always welcome.
Thank you. It's been great to talk with you and meet you as well.
Brought to you